Welcome to this TDL-sponsored webinar demonstrating new features in Vireo 3. My name is Christy Park from the Texas Digital Library. I'm joined by Ryan Steens, our Director of Operations, who will take you through the enhancements in Vireo 3 after we go through some preliminary information. Vireo 3 is the latest version of the TDL's thesis and dissertation management application, and it includes both new functionality and some bug fixes. We recently completed development on this version and released the open source code on GitHub during the week of March 2nd. This latest release features the work of 10 developers and other technical staff, as well as countless hours of work from our Vireo Users Group co-chairs, Stephanie Larison and David Reynolds, and we want to thank all of them for making this possible. One note before we move on for those institutions for whom we host Vireo. Over the last several weeks, we've begun upgrading TDL-hosted Vireo installations, beginning with UT Austin's. We are upgrading in place, meaning that we will not set up a cloned instance of Vireo for testing, but we will upgrade your production instance. This means it will be very straightforward and a more streamlined process than in the past. And Ryan will be in contact with each of our institutions to schedule that upgrade, which will require you to shut down submissions to Vireo overnight for several hours until the upgrade is complete. In the interim between this webinar and the start of your upgrade, our training installation of Vireo will be available to you for testing and experimentation in the new version of Vireo, and Ryan will tell you more about that later. We're very proud of the way Vireo has grown since it was first put into production at Texas A&M in 2008. I believe it just keeps getting better with every release. And as you all know, the TDL developed Vireo originally for its own member base, and you can see here that a dozen of our member institutions currently use it to process and publish their ETDs. Most of these Vireo installations are hosted and managed by the TDL. We're also actively working with 3 other members to bring up hosted Vireo installations at the University of North Texas, U of H Clear Lake, and UT Arlington. Along with the growing number of users within our own consortium, there are a number of institutions nationwide that are also deploying Vireo. Since we released Vireo under an open source license in 2009, 10 institutions that we know about have deployed Vireo, with Harvard being the most recent. They announced their launch of Vireo during Open Access Week last October. And several developers from these institutions contributed code to the latest release, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate with and build that Vireo development community with future releases. As with any new development on Vireo, we began with a survey of the Vireo users group to determine what the areas of greatest need are among our users. The VUG held a vote in 2014 to prioritize a list of new feature enhancements, and the top 4 vote getters were very clearly delineated from the remainder of the requests, so we felt confident that the majority of users wanted them implemented. The top 3 are listed here, and these are all new feature sets that have been implemented in the new version. First, we have added functionality that allows users to create email rules so that automated emails are triggered by certain actions in the system. Secondly, we improved the student interface for submitting corrected manuscripts. And third, we've included the ability to generate CSV reports from a filtered list. Additionally, the developer group this year had extra time to tackle some other feature requests that didn't make the top 3 in the prioritization vote. These include added email functionality that lets users email others besides the student or the advisor. It improves the handling of multiple submissions from the same student. We've added a separate optional embargo period specifically for ProQuest submissions. There's a new email template variable that's available that is for the URL to the published manuscript. We've also added a couple of enhancements related to the custom actions checklist. We have a new ability to filter by completed custom actions, as well as the ability to display custom action items in the student view. Additionally, we have in Vireo 3 the ability to work on multiple submissions at once in separate browser windows or tabs, and the addition of an action log to one of the file export packages. And there are a couple of enhancements not listed here because they were incorporated outside of the prioritization vote. Those include the optional incorporation of Orchid researcher IDs in the student submission workflow, and also the addition of an ADA compliant student submission interface. I mentioned before that there were 4 feature requests that rose to the top in the prioritization vote, but only 3 were implemented in this version. So what about the 4th request? This is that 4th request, the ability to set up lookup tables to enhance metadata collection for subject headings and keywords. There are a number of reasons why we didn't tackle this enhancement in this development cycle. First of all, it's a pretty big enhancement that would require significant developer time. So the decision was made to focus the time that was available on knocking out a whole slew of feature enhancements that could be done in the same amount of time as we would have to devote to this single enhancement. And secondly, and perhaps more importantly, after further conversations with those who wanted this new feature, we learned that those who voted for it had vastly different interpretations of what this meant and what they planned to do with it. And third, and fortunately, we currently have a working group tackling issues related to metadata and ETDs in Vireo, and this question of controlled vocabularies or lookup tables is one that they will be grappling with, and so we felt that it would benefit us and Vireo to wait on the recommendations from those metadata experts before proceeding with this enhancement. But in all, we think we have greatly improved the functionality of Vireo in this version with 11 new feature enhancements. So with that, I will turn it over to Ryan to give us some.
We did quite a bit of work on email. Traditionally, Vireo has only sent an email when the student submits their thesis or dissertation to both the student and then one to the advisor. There is, of course, a little bit of email that can be sent to alert students of needs corrections, and there's a few other email templates you can create. But what we've done is set it up so that when the ETD changes states, an email would be sent. You can create these completely for however your workflow is set up at your university. It's based on a lot of if-then statements. You can create the rules, you can turn them on and turn them off, including some of the global rules that arrive with your Vireo 3 installation, and that includes those emails going out to faculty at the time of the submission. All rules have to be turned on after they're created, and you can also pause, as I mentioned, you can pause them and play them, and so there's some iconography that you'll start to recognize in Vireo 3. I mentioned that as the ETD changes states, you can send an email at that point. The states where it will be sent are submitted, corrections received, approved, pending publication, or published. We don't have needs correction in here because the functionality hasn't essentially changed there. You're still sending needs correction as an action that occurs as part of your workflow outside of the band of the ETD actually changing state. So don't expect any big changes in needs corrections. This is a new feature. Once your state is selected, such as submitted or pending publication, You decide on the condition. Does it always send an email? Does it send it just to people in a college or a department or a program? Depending on the student's program, depending on their department, depending on their college. You create all of this in the configurable settings, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit later. So, practically what occurs is you create this in the drop-down menu. You select your condition type. I want to always, or because this student is in the College of Engineering, they should receive, or they should be sending an email at that point. Then you select which template you'd like to go out. It may be that you create a custom template. You might be using something from the system. It might be something like when the ETD is approved, if they're in the College of Engineering, you want to alert somebody that you are that it has been approved, that this ETD is moving forward. And so you'd create a template to alert people to that. Then you select the recipient. There are several different areas of recipients. It may be that you send it to the college, the department, or the program. It may be that you send it to whoever's working on that ETD at the time. That'd be the assignee. You could send it to the advisor or an administrative group. An administrative group is a new idea within Vireo 3. It's there specifically for the emails. It enables you to come up with different groups that aren't really represented previously in Vireo. So if you need to send an email to librarians, or you need to send an email to a whole group of people within the graduate office, you'd be able to do it from here. Under configurable settings, in the colleges, departments, programs, you're now able to associate an email address. So you would just add email addresses to the colleges, departments, and programs in order to make this functionality work correctly. It's really straightforward. When you edit the group, you just add the emails right into a field. Very, very straightforward. I also mentioned that you could send it to the advisor or to yourself or to whomever is working on it as the assignee, and to review where those email addresses are. From within the View tab, you can always see the advisor email address. And you can also see who the assignee is within the student's view, and you can just click there to see what the email address is for each of those assignees. So let's put it all together. We know that we have a condition. We know that we have a template that we're going to select, and we need to select a recipient. So it becomes an if-then statement. If the student is in the Department of Film, then the following email goes to their advisor. Feature 2 that Christy discussed was improving needs corrections. We've had a lot of issues in the past with students who get to that screen and they just get lost. So now when you send off the email, and this should look pretty familiar to users of Vireo, the student will come to their submission history page, and they'll see that they need corrections at that point, and they'll go ahead and click Edit. When they get to that screen, they'll see that there's a red floating window with all kinds of instructions for them. It tells them exactly where they need to go. They need to click here to jump down to replace the manuscript, and they can just go ahead and click there. And at that point, it will take them to the right place within the needs correction screen. They can see where they can replace the manuscript or change out supplemental files. One of the things that we've done for clarification is alert the student that their file name will be renamed. We've had a lot of confusion with that in the past, but hopefully this note will help clarify that for the students. After they've uploaded their new file, they'll see that corrections are completed. They just click on that button to move on. It'll ask them if they're sure, and at that point they're done. Moving on to columns and reports, we've had some requests for being able to generate the same report over and over very easily out of Vireo, and that becomes complicated because you're constantly possibly changing which columns you're looking at, those sorts of things. So in order to deal with this, we've added the ability to save current filter that now enables you to save the columns as well. This will, as you'll see momentarily, enable you to generate a report. When you go to download export, if you select Excel export, you'll see that it's going to ask you if you want to use one of the filters that you've previously saved. So if you've saved your filters as you traditionally have and said, okay, I also want to save the columns, now this will pop up and I can say that I want to select the filter with columns, and it will generate the same report over and over for you to be able to compare and contrast between semesters without having to worry about getting all of your columns in a row correctly. You'll be able to do this very, very quickly. We've added some additional filter options. There's now a custom action checklist option. You can now filter for which items have been checked or completed. You can't actually check for which ones aren't completed. You can just look to see which students have completed which of the custom action items on your checklist. Speaking of custom actions, we've now made some of them public or private. It's completely up to you. If you want to make the items visible to the student, all you have to do is click the checkbox and the student will be able to see it in the needs correction screen, and anytime they go back to that screen, they'll be able to see exactly what state they're at with the requirements. For you, you'll see it as a globe if the students can see it, or just a person's silhouette if it's just available to you. So if you have things that you don't care that the student sees, whether they've checked them off, you can always make them private. And there's all sorts of use cases for both of these things. Orchid has been implemented into Vireo 3. There's been a lot of development on this by Texas A&M University. If you have questions about Orchid, I highly recommend contacting TDL or contacting your colleagues at Texas A&M as to how it can benefit you. What we've added is the ability for the student to submit an Orchid field. This is a unique identifier that will help identify who they are as a researcher going down the road. They can click here to claim an Orchid ID from orchid.org. What the tool will also enable you to do is validate against the Orchid API to make sure it's a real number, that they're not just putting in a 16-digit number. And you can also set it to make sure that the first and last names match what is in the Orchid database. You can edit that. The student can either submit it here and it'll verify, or you can edit it, of course, within the administrative screen, and it will also validate here as well. Embargoes default in ProQuest. We know that ProQuest has specific embargo periods. They may be very different from what you're using on your campus. We know that there's use cases for both longer ProQuest embargoes and shorter ProQuest embargoes. So if you want to make those available to your students, you now have the ability to do so. In order to see and access the ProQuest embargoes, the students do have to click that they're following the that they do want to submit their ETD to ProQuest at the license agreement. At which point they will see both options in their menu as they submit their ETD, and they can choose whichever they want to out of those lists. If the ProQuest embargo is hidden or not selected, they're not going to see it. They're just going to see the default embargoes. And of course, you can use those to impact when you release items to ProQuest. There's all kinds of different ways to use this that we're finding and discussing this with our members. So just to review, you do have the embargoes. You can manage them, turn them off and on as far as how they're displayed, and you can definitely get in there and edit them. When you do get your Vireo 3 installation, there are now global embargoes that come through with the system. They can't be deleted or edited, but you can turn them off so the students can't see them, and you won't really see them from the list view. We will work with you to make sure that these are working and functional and are going to meet your needs for what you're doing on your campus. If you had a previously edited embargo that you'd worked on in Vireo 2, it'll come over as a custom embargo, and automatically the global embargo will disappear if it has the same name. All your custom embargoes will be notated with an asterisk, and just in short, let's make sure that we're talking to each other and you understand what all the embargoes do and don't do as we move forward. Very similarly, email templates have changed a little bit. The system emails that come through are going to be hard-coded into Vireo. You can copy those system emails and make any edits that you want to those, and turn off the system emails that you aren't using. So we'll work with you, of course, on all of this. If you had any previous templates, of course, those will be placed into the system as custom templates. Another big feature that we have been talking to folks about is stopping the duplicate entries from students. We know for a fact that there's just some students out there who come to Vireo and every time they log in, they start over. And so you might have 5 or 6 records from the same student. Now we've put some rails on the system so that when they do show up, they can see possibly if they need corrections, those sorts of things, and it will ask them if they want to start a new submission for a different degree rather than just letting them through. Furthermore, through the system, they'll be able to see all the usual college, department, degree, those sorts of things. But when they get to major, it will mark things that they have already gotten a degree in, that's already gone through the system. If it's already been approved, it'll show up as red, so they can't choose the same major again. And this will keep students from acting as if they're getting the same degree over and over in the system, and possibly put some rails on them. We believe that this will help a little bit as we go down the road. Another new feature is the advisor comment for rejection of an ETD. If an advisor approves, it's no big deal. It just shows up in your action log as the advisor approving your embargo selection in the application. However, if they select rejection, it does ask that they place a comment in there to explain why, so you understand what you might need to communicate back to the students for what they need to change on either the ETD itself or the embargo selection. The faculty, if they do make a mistake, have the ability to unapprove the embargo. We've had some questions about this. We don't believe that faculty are going to be using this days later. This feature is basically there in case the faculty have selected the wrong radio button at the moment of submission. So they can unapprove their approval. Some changes in the reporting that you'll be able to see as you do those Excel exports. The committee members are now separated by a semicolon. All the items from an action checklist can be seen if you'd like to show those, including which items are checked. There's a semicolon between the default and ProQuest embargoes, and you can see the Orchid ID. So where are we headed for the future of Vireo? We're looking to rewrite it for version 4 using a newer version of the Play framework. And as Christy mentioned, there's a lot of things that we weren't able to tackle in version 3 that we are interested in taking on. The membership's definitely interested. And so we want to definitely look at those as we go forward, doing things like creating customized submission forms and workflows depending on colleges, departments, those sorts of things. Additional enhancements to the custom action checklist, like being able to put hypertext in there. Enhanced metadata collection through the use of lookup tables or linking. Obviously, there's a lot of complications there. And incorporation of recommendations from the metadata working group. We're still waiting on that report, but we know that there's going to be some good material coming out of that group.
Thanks, Ryan. As you can see, there is a lot of new functionality in Vireo 3. However, everything should work the same way in the upgraded version of Vireo 3 as it does in Vireo 2. You just have some new options for customization and workflow improvements going forward should you choose to use them. We want to remind everybody that there is an opportunity coming up in the fall to network and share knowledge around ETDs. So if you work with theses and dissertations either in the graduate school or in the libraries, the U.S. ETD Association conference is a great opportunity for you to learn and network with other colleagues in this area. It will be held in Austin. The Texas Digital Library is serving as local host. It's September 29th through October 1st, and our keynote speaker for that event will be Dr. Lorraine Harricombe, who is the new Vice Provost and Director of Libraries at UT Austin. She is an open access expert and implemented the OA policy at the University of Kansas, where she was the dean previously. And she has a lot of expertise and insight into questions around open access and new forms of scholarship. So we are excited about that. The call for proposals deadline for that event is April 15th, so we encourage all of our members to submit proposals and make plans to attend that event. Finally, as I mentioned previously, we do have a training version of Vireo available to anyone who wants to test or experiment in the new version of Vireo. It is at training-etd.tdl.org, and we have a number of user accounts set up that you can use to get into that system. They all follow the form shown here, tdl.studentx@tdl.org, where x is any number between 1 and 18. And they all have the same password, TDL student. So if you log in with one of those user accounts, you should have administrative access to Vireo and can test out all the new email settings, configurable settings, and everything else that's new in Vireo 3. As always, if you have any questions, either as you're playing around in the training site or as we go through the upgrade process with your institution's Vireo installation, do not hesitate to contact our help desk, which you can access through a web form at tdl.org/support or through our email address, support@tdl.org. We try to respond to those requests at a maximum within 1 business day, but usually within 4 hours of receiving the request. So we will get back to you and do our best to answer your questions and resolve your problems. That concludes the webinar. Again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to be in touch, and Ryan will be in touch with each member as we go through the upgrade process. This webinar recording and the slides are available on the TDL website, and the slides themselves are downloadable from this Adobe Connect session in the Files pod on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Thank you.